We are live, right on time.
Hello.
Woo!
Yay. Whee.
Nothing like being on time. We're just talking about commuting into New York City and how much time it takes.
No, thank you.
So luckily, when I'm commuting in right now, the 1 day a week, the trains line up pretty well with my commute. I had a class back in 2020, it was, where the trains didn't line up with my commute, and I had an hour wait going in. So I would just sit in the train station and draw. I brought a whole bag full of drawing tools, and I'd hang out and do some work drawing because it was nuts.
It's like being in
an hour wait. Because the class I was teaching started at like 11, and there were no train, or maybe it was 2. That one was, and there were no, commuter trains aren't made to get you in on time at 2 in the afternoon. They just don't run a lot of times.
Those Zoom meetings are starting to look good in comparison, huh?
Mm-hmm. Hello, Movie World Comics. How are you today? Though I did take out, like I said, I have just before COVID hit, I got I built up and perfected I have a knapsack full of art supplies that I bring in and all sorts of junk I might need as I sit there. And one thing I just pulled out of it, I'm like, I don't think I need these. These are 9 little dice. Like, I don't think I was like, you know what? In case I need some dice as I'm commuting. And it turns out I don't think I really need 9 little dice as I'm commuting. So I took them out.
I guess the craps games during the week between don't happen as often as they used to.
They actually, one time, I remember, this is in the 90s. I used to go in on the train. There's 2 different trains kind of systems in my area to get in. What it is I'm on the west side of the Hudson River in New York. And when what's his name? Robert Moses put in all the highways in New York City, in and around New York City. There used to be a west side passenger line that went from New York City up to Albany. He tore that out because Robert Moses did not like public transportation, which is why he let the subways decay. He didn't like poor people. He didn't like, he was a big racist. He didn't like color. He didn't like people of any color besides white. And he just, let everything
just don't change, do they?
No. Pulled out the West Side Highway line. We've got one of the world's busiest freight lines on our side of the Hudson, but no more passenger trains. Which, my whole life they've been talking about putting passenger trains in there again, but they're never gonna. But the east side of the Hudson has the passenger trains. So if I'm going to take a train in, not a bus, I either have to drive down to South Rockland and get the train that goes through New Jersey, or drive across the Hudson River to the train that goes down the east side. Those are my 2 choices. And I used to go down the Metro North because a friend went that way, down Metro North in the 90s. And there used to be, and they used to serve drink. I don't know if they used to serve drinks on the train coming home. You can understand why. Hey, cognac and whiskey. Is port still working? He should be long in a few minutes. He'll be 50 evening comic back. So these guys who used to have drinks and they'd play poker. So they had a little group of them, and they're like the front of the trains. They have you can flip the seats so they face each other. So they'd have like 4 or 5 seats facing each other, and they'd play poker on their way home.
Right.
They actually arrested them one night in the 90s. I don't know why. It made all the news, and it made all the news for the wrong reasons. They arrested the guys who played poker on the train. But it turns out it's not illegal to gamble on poker unless there's a house. So it was like, it was just like, why do they even bother? Why did they do it? It was just like 4 or 5 guys playing poker on their way home from work after a long day on the commute, and I I don't know who got it in their mind to arrest them, but they did. And you can find, I wonder when that was. I think it was the late 90s, but it was just like one of those things that's just like, come on. How to make your commute worse? Get arrested for playing poker on the way home.
I bet somebody running for office used that as a
Who knows?
platform. I'm cleaning up crime.
The papers certainly didn't like it. The New York, and then of course, like I said, they weren't committing a crime either.
Right.
You can gamble all you like as long as there's no house.
Wow.
But speaking of New York papers and headlines, there was a great Tom Brady headline in the New York Post this week that said, "Guy who couldn't beat the Giants retires."
That's funny. He lost early in his career. He lost like 2 playoffs to the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. I think.
No, he didn't. He didn't ever lose to the Bills in the playoffs.
It was one team.
He only lost Super Bowls to the Giants and the Eagles.
Okay.
And the playoffs, I know he lost to the Ravens. Who else? The Bills haven't been in the Super Bowl since the early 90s, so he didn't lose to them. I forget who else he lost to, though, in the playoffs.
I don't even watch the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
It's like people that complain about baseball being slow have never watched the 4th quarter of an NFL game.
It can go fast. It can go slow. It's amazing how fast it can go sometimes. The end of the end of the Chiefs Bills game went slow, but this last week the end of the Niners Rams game went fast.
I giggled profusely at both those outcomes.
Man, oh man. Anybody in comics die this week? I'm trying to remember.
Not that I'm aware. I haven't heard any comics news at all this week, actually.
Me too. I thought I heard someone.
The only thing I'd heard is that.
Oh, that's right. That editor from DC died.
Oh, Brian Augustine. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. He died this week.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
See, you did hear some comic book news.
I did. I didn't remember it.
That was one of those names I recognized, but I don't think I've read anything he's ever written. Well, I might have I think I read Gotham by Gaslight when it first came out.
Yeah.
Because he's credited with inventing the Elseworlds concept, which is just What If by another name to me, right, even though DC swears it isn't.
Yeah.
I've been turned from soccer to football some years ago. The Bills had great. Yeah, they were. They were great. If you want craziest times for Canadian curling, who was just? I think it was Travis was just said he was reading comics and watching curling. I saw on Twitter.
At least with soccer, you get more than one game a week.
The only thing I don't like about soccer is shootouts.
I'm not a huge fan of the way the NFL's got their overtime set up either.
But at least it's the same game.
Yeah, but
like shootouts are like deciding a game of baseball. It's like, okay, we played 9 innings. Now we're going to play home run derby.
Sort of, yeah.
It's like a completely different game to decide the game.
Right.
That's what bothers me about shootouts in soccer.
No.
Overtime has its issues, but it's the same exact game. Baseball, you just play extra innings. It's the same amount of game. It's the same game. Hockey, you just put extra time on. It's the same game. Right. Soccer, let's play a different game. to decide that game. It's like, what? A soccer team plays some 50 matches a year, maybe more. Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's my beef about the NFL. It's not a sport. It's a once a week gladiatorial.
It's football is an event sport. You can only play it once a week.
Rugby players laugh at that.
You play it more than once a week, you're in trouble. As who
They
was
play
it?
more than once a week without pads.
Yeah, as some famous basketball player said, basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport.
Basketball is a lot more contact than most people realize.
Well, there's a lot less than there used to be, but it still is a contact sport.
Well, yeah, back in the '90s, the Detroit
Pistons.
Thank you. They mugged more people than the mafia ever did.
Yeah. The 5 minutes I was really into rugby league, loved it. Fast-paced and brutal. And you know what I really liked? When ESPN first came on, they had like no sports to show. So they were showing Australian rules football. I really liked
Which is
that.
a sport. Yeah.
He takes the mark. Oh!
They used to show, racquetball. My favorite one way back in the day when they first started was airplane racing.
That's right. I forgot
they
about
would have
that.
reconditioned World War II fighter planes that were
Right.
raced around pylons.
Oh my! I completely forgot about that. Now I can picture them.
I
probably just had flipped by them.
If you want a really brutal sport, watch jousting.
I've never seen.
That's like the most dangerous sport in the world. Other than maybe like flamethrower dueling or something like that.
Jousting.
Jousting, you will get hurt. It's almost guaranteed.
Hey, getting hit by a stick and getting knocked off your horse?
Well, consider the mass of the horse and the rider coming in behind that.
Yeah, that'll get you hurt, all right.
The physics that you don't even want to think about.
Yeah, I haven't seen Australian rules football in a long time. They haven't showed it on ESPN since the 80s when
the thing I always thought was funny was like the little lab coats they wore with the hats.
Those are the refs.
Right? Made them look like Inspector Clouseau.
And they'd go like this. This is how they'd signal.
Yeah.
He takes the mark. I just remember that. It took me a while to figure out the rules.
Beat the crap out of each other.
Oh, well, that's because it's not that they beat the crap out of each other. It's that in order to catch the ball, they had to jump really high.
Right.
And often guys would take your legs out from under you and you just tumble to the ground.
Yeah, right.
That was like, ow. That just hurt. There's lots of tall falls in that game.
Right.
It's like, oh. Better that be playing that on some nice, soft, natural grass.
Oh, yeah. I don't even want to imagine that on AstroTurf. That would be bad.
Boom. Field turf. Oh, hold on. My Wacom screen is on. I had to turn it off. Otherwise, I'm just burning power. Bum, 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 bum. Let me see. There was one comic I add. What did I add to my wish list this week? I saw one collected edition I want. Oh, the Grendel Prime Omnibus. That was it.
I saw where they finished filming from the first season of Grendel the other day.
Oh, they did? Is that live action?
As far as I know.
Okay. Reed Riffin Slab to start us off? I can start us off with one of those. Why not? What do we got? NFL refereeing was kind of ridiculous. It's always, referees are humans. Let's see what we got for a Reed Riffin Slab. What do I have set up? Ooh, Marvel, September 1951. There we go. We have got Suspense number 13, now on sale every month. We've got Private Eye number 7. We've got Mystic number 6. And here's an interesting thing. I've heard before that, yeah, look at those. They are cool. The first comics I collected were secondhand black and white English comics, digest size, and the backs always had crazy cricket stars and cricket stats. Seemed like such an alien sport. Wow. And here's some. I was looking at. I did a DC September 1951 and a Marvel one, and I have to say that Marvel put out a lot more books. When they say Marvel flooded the market, they really did. DC had maybe half a dozen books. Marvel had probably twice that.
I bet you did.
Hey, I'm walking a cricket
a
match.
lot more copies. Yeah. I already know this one.
Now on, they're all pretty cool. We got a giant monster.
Mm-hmm.
We got a guy being knocked off a ledge. We got a human sacrifice. These are all pre-code too.
All right.
Let's see what his crack got for. He's going to read Mystic, rip Private Eye, and slab Suspense, I think. I don't know, Private Eye might be the best cover.
That's exactly what I was going to do.
Funny thing about cricket, there's no regimented field of play. Any place works. Oh, okay. I've never really seen a cricket match. You're going to go with the same thing? You're going to read Mystic?
Yep.
Rip Private Eye, slab Suspense.
Private Eye. I'm ripping up Private Eye because I like the other two covers better and because it's got way too much yellow in the logo.
Mystic's a yellow logo. It doesn't have the big. I think I would slab Private Eye because I like the cover. I think I might like that cover best. I like the whole.
I like the Suspense cover the best.
The monster doesn't thrill me. I like the human. I like all three covers, mind you. Don't get me wrong, but the Suspense cover might be my least favorite of the three. Only because I kind of like the other two better. Slab Mystic, read Private Eye, and he's ripping Suspense.
How can you rip up a comic that's got a green monster that's about to pounce on semi-Indiana Jones there?
Gotta rip one of them. My dad played cricket. Lots of memories of spending Sunday at the park watching and playing outside. He was the bowler. Always scared the shit out of me. That ball is solid.
Yeah, you want something scary? A highlight ball is solid too, and that thing travels a hell of a lot faster than a cricket ball does. I would not want to get hit with one of those.
Private Eye. But I think I'm going to slab Private Eye. Now, which one do I want to read? She Wouldn't Stay Dead. Okay, She Wouldn't Stay Dead has got me. I'm going to have to rip up Suspense, too. Ooh.
Man, no love for Indiana Jones there, man.
Missed that, Scott. Which ball goes really fast?
Highlight.
Highlight. Oh, yeah. That's because they got that big scoop there to give it speed.
Yeah.
Oh, man, all these covers are pretty darn nice. You know what it is? With all the pin-up and piggyback covers, he's going to read Suspense, read Mystic, and rip out. You have to slab one of them. Which one gets slabbed? Do you know which? Because once again this week, I was looking for cheap CGC slabbed comics on eBay. Because once again, I just want to buy one day. Yeah, they are all great covers. Between all the pinup and piggyback covers you get nowadays, you don't see great covers like this anymore. Sorry, meant to slab Suspense. Okay, that's what he's doing. Slabbing Suspense, reading Mystic, and ripping Private Eye. I think I'm the only one slabbing. I think I'm the only one slabbing Private Eye. But anyway, I was what I do is I put in a search for CGC covers.
Right.
There's an insane bass country sport, Palato Basco, where they throw the ball really fast with some kind of big claw-like thing. Yeah, that sounds like highlight.
Sounds a lot like highlight.
I got to start putting together an underground comics. Yeah, an underground comics rip reading slab. That would be fun. But anyway, I'm looking on eBay for. I put in CGC slabs, then I put in under $50, just as because I just want to get one day for like as a conversation piece. But I never end up buying one because really the cheapest one you're going to get is with shipping $45. Because you can find some for like $25 to $30 plus $15 shipping. So that's really the lowest you're going to get.
Or you could get the hardcover that you really want for that price.
Yeah, exactly. I can get plenty of other things I really want for that price. So I always end up not getting one. But I look, it kills an hour while I'm watching TV.
I used to look at eBay a lot. I don't really look at it that much anymore.
I do. I do every now and then.
Like, you get on there and it's like, it's what time in the morning? Oh, okay. Time to go to bed.
No, I don't do it that. I do it as I'm from one of the reasons. Mere pennies. One of the reasons I like to be done with everything by 9 is so I can sit down from 9 to 11 and just relax and watch a little TV and do nothing, so I can go to bed at 11.
Right.
Pennies. And one of the things, like I said, I've been looking on eBay for these little art cards too. I get, so I get those sometimes too. So I'll sit down as I'm watching TV and look at stuff.
Terrence is having a breakdown over there.
He is. Now I'm confused.
Yeah.
But
Sandy Koufaxed.
I'm going to look at those covers for a little longer. I'll just keep talking in this little box until Paolo shows up.
That's fine.
But do you know what the most common cover I saw for $30? Like I said, I put up CGC, then I put up under $50, then I put up buy it now.
Right.
So all of them, there are no auctions going on. Here's the one I must have mentioned it. Why do you think Slab Jupiter #1? So that is the one that's the cheapest one. You can find tons of Slabs Jupiter's Legacy #1 for $30, 9.8s. There was at least half a dozen of them that I saw.
Because everybody and their brother bought them.
No, it wasn't that they bought them. It's that everybody bought them. It was going to be a Netflix show, and then the Netflix show was canceled after one season.
Right.
So all of a sudden, people bought them to invest, and I imagine plenty of shops bought them, slabbed them immediately, looking for 9.8s, waited for the Netflix show.
Right.
But now the Netflix show is come and gone, so there's no demand anymore. But that was one of the ones I was looking at. The problem is the cover isn't very good. The craze is over. The Jupiter, that's what it is. If you don't hit the 5-second window, you're screwed. Yeah, it's like I saw at least half a dozen Jupiter's Legacy #1s. And I don't know if the cover is just not very good. It's a Frank Quitely cover, but it's two of the characters just standing there.
Right.
And they're not even standing there in dramatic poses. They're just kind of standing there almost randomly. But the other one I was looking at, I think there was, what was there? Oh, I could get the other one I was looking at, both around $30. With a white back, yeah, I think that there was like some white background with two characters standing there. It's just like, matter of fact, let me go over to my shelf and see if I have my non-slab one. Where is Jupiter's Legacy?
The one that you saved $42 on, huh?
Oh no. I don't have it. Turns out I got the alternate cover, probably because the other one was boring. I got the alternate cover by who is this? What's his name? I know his name. I may as well take this down.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
The guy who I can't remember anything.
Jared has the olds today, ladies.
Brian Hitch. I got the Brian Hitch cover of Jupiter's Legacy #1. I didn't even get the really boring Frank Quitely cover. Let's see if they have it here anywhere. Oh, there it is. It's this little tiny one right there. Those two characters standing there, real boring, with two heads behind them.
If you had taken all the graphics away, I could have said that's a Terry Moore cover.
Yeah. It's none too exciting. All of a sudden, it turned to our Sunday show. No one remembers anything. Yeah. I can't remember Brian Hitch's name. There's something for you. It's not like he's small time. But yeah, that was the one I was looking at was, they had a really nice Department of Truth #1. Actually goes for a bit of money. But they had an alternate cover, Department of Truth one. Oh, I just cut myself on something around here. What was that?
You get a paper cut?
I got like a laptop cut. I felt it as it happened. I found that's all round. I got a sharp corner somewhere that cut my finger. I'm like, where did that come from? But there's like an issue 1 of Department of Truth but it's like a 9.2. I guess that's why it was only $30. Because if it was a 9.8, it would be going for $120. King Spoet in the house.
I saw something the other
classical
day.
Feel, yeah.
I thought that might interest you, and I don't remember where I saw it now. There is I don't know if you would call it a documentary or maybe just more like a biographical movie about J.C. Landecker.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be coming out. Yeah.
But I've heard nothing but bad about it. Evidently, it's like really dramatic, and everybody's like, no, that's not right.
That's too bad. Yeah. Missed the beginning. So, Paolo's doing. Paolo said he should be here, but he'd be 15 minutes late. But he's half an hour late now. But as far as I know, he's doing okay. He was here last week. So, last week he could talk and was fine. And he said he'd be here. He'd just be 15 minutes late. He usually gets off and has dinner right before he comes on. So I expect to see him, but
he'll be 50 feet tall when he shows
the
up.
Devil.
Hey guys,
there you go.
The devil, and he shall appear.
I am the devil.
Graphic Man was just asking about you.
You have been summoned.
I had a late. I got off too late from work, and I had a late.
That's what I figured. But here, we'll show you what we did a rip, read, and slab.
Mm-hmm.
We were just discussing. We'll show it to you because it was it's Marvel, September 1951.
Just about all of us came up with the same answer, except
me. I was the only one who slabbed Private Eye because I liked that cover best. I slabbed Private Eye, read Mystic, and ripped up Suspense. Almost everybody else ripped up Private Eye and slabbed and read.
No, I'm going to read Private Eye because that's one of the very few adventure strips that Marvel had at that year.
Ah.
The suspense had for the first 2 or 3 issues. They had scripts adapted from the radio show. But after that, they started doing regular filler science fiction horror stories, and the same time that appeared in Mystic. So yeah, if Martin Goodman put out 5 titles in the same genre, you bet that every story was the same.
I was just saying, in looking through this, I was doing, this is what, September 51? I was doing one for Marvel and one for DC. And Marvel had like twice the titles DC had out.
Yeah.
It was amazing how many titles they had.
I bet each of the DC books sold at least twice or more better than any of the Marvel books did too.
Yeah.
But that'll make me bring up one of my comics from this week, which is the official Image timeline.
Yeah, official history. That's what I love.
Yeah, I love.
I actually
love
like
any
that.
history stuff. Let me show you this up close. But there's no reason to pay $8 for this. If you can get the digital version for cheaper, you may as well.
Or you can read the Wikipedia article.
Or you can read, but it is really cool in that it gives you the official Image. And there's some fun, snarky stuff in here. It just gives you a timeline of what happened. And somebody even researched you get a few pictures of the Image guys. It's a nice little historical document, but not the greatest thing in the world. Some little covers in the back. Mm-hmm. What I will complain about is the amateur typography. Because what they did was they took this font, which isn't even a body copy font, and they stretched it taller than it should be. So it's not that easy to read. It's like I looked at this first page and I went the introduction page, and there's something in typography called body copy. And that is the typeface that they print a book in. Mm-hmm. Because when you're reading a book, it should be easy to read. There's a reason they made a movie about the font Helvetica. Because it's one of the most influential fonts of the 20th century, because it's so versatile and it's so easy to read. You put books, because when you look at a book, you don't want to think about the font. You just want to read it. And there's lots of fonts that aren't body copy, which you can use for headlines and logos and whatever. That's what the vast majority of fonts are fonts and typefaces. Typeface is the style of font. Font is the sort of what it delivers. There's tons of typeface styles that aren't body copy. It's
like family and species when you get to
right. But body copy, that Helvetica documentary is so it's really.
You know why it was so damn good is because the director of photography insisted on using aerial photography.
My job is to get everyone thinking about Paulo so he can show up triumphantly the hero. Dun dun dun. But like I said, there are certain fonts that you use for body copy. Universe is one of them. Helvetica New, that are tried and true. And you don't want to get all artsy with your body copy. I would watch the hell out of that font movie. Yeah, look up Helvetica. You can probably find it on YouTube. It's the history of Helvetica and how it changed the world. And they used a non-body copy. They not only used a font that is not really a body copy font, but they stretched it up and down. So it's like the font isn't the proportion, and you can tell it's not the proportions because it looks weird.
Yeah.
And so I opened up the first page had this introduction with the stretched font on it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Then the second page had a normal body copy font. And I was like, whew, maybe they used a normal body copy font. Then I was like, no, they didn't. And all throughout the whole book, it's got this really terrible stretched body copy. And then And I don't even think there's a designer credited on this. So I don't even know if it had a designer or the editor just put it together himself. But and this stuff is about what you would expect. It's covers and things. It doesn't look any good. All the pictures don't look any good. It's just who picked that purple to be a background? I don't know.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, who created that background? Awful.
Right. And if you want to know more about Image, you might as well watch the 25-year documentary.
Right. This is
Barry Windsor-Smith do the coloring on that.
The design is pretty amateur. The typography is pretty amateur. But like this 30 years of awards looks like it was put together by a different designer because that's professionally done.
Right.
That looks professionally typeset. It's like this guy did his section. That's a professional designer job right there. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it really isn't. So I was kind of like, And then there was one. He even says in here, there's probably a few mistakes. What? Mine's not in mint. I cut my finger before. Now I've got blood on my comic. I should put a Band-Aid on.
It's like the Kids comic from Marvel.
Yeah.
Wait, you got blood on that comic? You're going to summon a demon.
I just got blood on my Image comic.
You just summoned the spirit of Rob Liefeld.
He's coming after me. Whoever the designer was on this is going to haunt my dreams tonight.
I mean, there's going to be a couch demon that pops up with no feet.
There's even one spot where they accidentally left type from. There's like 2 extra lines of type that weren't supposed to be there. Oh, there we go. Guys, like, there's probably even some. I just have to show you this, just because this is so amateur. I don't know how you missed this. Way down the bottom here, where it says February 1, first founders. See where it says January 9 above it?
Mm-hmm.
That's because February 1, first founders, is supposed to be on the next page. And sure enough, it's on the next page.
All right.
February 1, first founders. They just got it down here by accident and didn't delete it. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of proofreader doesn't notice that that's there. But that leads me to believe that even though this said it took them many months to put together or to write it, they didn't spend any time designing and typesetting it.
Well, let me tell you that I've missed my fair share of hanging lines in published texts.
But were they
not
extra,
once,
or were they just?
I never put
an
twice.
Extra line in. But usually there's like levels of proofreading going on.
Yeah, not once, not twice, not 3 times. But that's what you get for doing a weekly magazine. So
yeah, but if you're the only one, if no one's proofreading you, that's understandable.
Well,
if there's 2 or 3 levels of proofreading, that should never happen.
Yeah, there wasn't 3 levels of proofreading. There were 5 people writing, plus one chief editor, and we all read each other's stuff.
Yeah,
we only had time for one person reading one text at a time.
Yeah, that's a recipe for getting mistakes in. So, what do we think of comics? I don't think of Comic Sans at all.
My friend
never
Hal,
use it, never think of it.
Yeah,
The famous gang picture where they recently photoshopped what's what happened to someone else. No, I didn't notice if they did onto someone else's body.
Talking about fonts, my friend Hal's an art director for a game company, and if you even mention papyrus within a 100-mile radius of him, he'll go ballistic.
Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna get a Band-Aid.
He hates papyrus with a passion.
Mm-hmm. I used to think Wingdings was funny when I was 14.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you can just type in the characters and come up with random. I actually have a book of typography and science fiction.
I'm going to try to avoid bleeding on any of my other comics. So I'll put a little Band-Aid over my nick. But overall, I liked the official Image timeline. It was just terribly... I mean, I liked the idea of the history of it. And there was some stuff I didn't know in it.
Right.
Other than that, it's mostly a timeline. It says stuff
Speaking
like...
of Image, did you see or read Don Simpson and Steve Bissett's posts about Alan Moore's response to Don Simpson and why there wasn't going to be any more 1963?
Yeah, I did.
I lost a lot of respect for Alan Moore after reading that.
I didn't. People just can't accept that Alan Moore doesn't want to do comics.
No, that's not, I didn't have a problem with him not wanting to do it anymore. But what he did to Steve Bissett was not right.
Well, what Steve Bissett did to him wasn't right.
What did Steve do to him?
As he said in there, Steve started making up stuff about Alan Moore. And it was right before Steve Bissett went into therapy for making stuff up about people.
That's not why he went into therapy. He went into therapy for marriage counseling.
I'm just telling you what I read. I don't know. I don't pay much attention to that. I don't put much stock into that kind of gossip, so I don't worry about it. People just want to get. It just amazes me how upset people want to get at Alan Moore because he doesn't want to do comics. I'm okay with him not doing.
Oh, I have no problem with him not wanting to do comics. It's just the.
But people don't want to accept it. People get upset with him, especially the people he collaborated with. But he always gives them permission. Kiss Blood, Image Rub the Blood, Stan Lee Blood comics, now Jared Blood comics. Yeah. And there's a Mark Grunwald Ashes in an issue, a Captain America trade paperback.
Well, the next time you do one of your mini comics, you can do full bleed artwork now.
Yeah. And another thing I got this week, Cerebus in Hell, the calendar. I think he did this last year, too. He put out an issue that's a calendar.
Why?
And I have to say, this was the funniest issue in a while. Maybe because what it was doing is, I think these are all the covers for the year. And the themes for the year. So there was a wide variety of jokes. Rather than one issue being jokes on a theme, we've got 12 different themes. So I just found this one more entertaining than normal. Which is good because sometimes if you don't like if I don't like the theme. Oh, he wants to know what Moore did to Bissett. What did Moore do?
I'll have to send you a link to it. It's kind of involved.
Rub the blood. Yeah, I didn't really care either. It's just
he was taking cheap shots. He shouldn't have been taking.
Yeah, but
just wrong.
Bissett took cheap shots at him too. I remember that now too. So I don't like to pay too much attention to gossip just because I don't, I'm just not a big fan of gossip. So if two guys want to fight with each other, that's fine with me. I don't have to pick a side. And two guys gossip fights. But it's weird. I can already predict which cover, because this one, its print run was only 1,683, which is 1,000 off its high print run. And you can already tell that, like, that Detective Comics Spider-Man, that one's going to bring the print run up. This, I don't know why. You see that red one in the middle? He's doing a parody of Emily Strange, which was a popular children's book about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I am not sure why he's doing a parody cover of that, because I actually like that book. I have one copy of it because it's really well. Have you guys ever seen the Emily Strange books?
I've seen the covers. I know. I've never read them,
they
I know
look
a little
like
bit.
It's a really well done, well illustrated, interesting little book. But it's like no one. I show it to my students sometimes in my class, and none of them know what it is. So it's obviously hasn't been popular in a decade. So it's weird that he's parodying that one. Yeah, duels were more civilized than social media and stuff. Yeah, I just don't want to get caught up in social media gossip. It's just kind of like, takes too much out of me. Did you read any comics this week, Paolo?
Nope, no time.
No time.
I read
He's
one.
busy working.
Yeah, well, on my free time, I was writing for the Car magazine.
Ah,
Gotcha.
I was lucky. I ended up having a bigger week than I thought I was going to have, because sometimes some things don't like I get a final order cutoff, and every week my shop orders me a final order cutoff where I can order more books or not. And I also get an email that's telling me what's coming in that week. But for some reason, some books don't show up on what, like the Cerebus book never shows up on what's coming in this week. I don't know why. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know, but I understand it's kind of like it's tough to get Cerebus in the system because every issue is a new #1, and it's real annoying. Gossip Fight #1, a romance comic superhero crossover. So it's like I thought I had 8 issues coming in, and it ended up being 10, and it was like a $44 week for me, because this one was $8. And I really, like, when the final order cutoff came in, I really vacillated on whether I should put this on my pull list and spend $8 on it or not, because I could get 2 real comics for $8. But I was like, you know what? I like history. I like the history of comics. I may as well get it, because otherwise, if I didn't pull this, I'd never see it. This isn't something comic shops are ever going to have in the back issue bin, because they didn't order any of them, I assume. I mean, what can the print run on this be? 5,000?
Tops.
Yeah, tops. And I'm sure comic shops only ordered it for people they knew would buy it. So I figured, you know what? I'm either going to pay $8 for it now or never see it again. So I ended up paying $8 for it. And the other one, I had 2 $8 books this week. And this was another one I vacillated on back and forth. It's Geiger 80-page Giant. Another $8 book. Well, at least it's an 80-page $8 book with a lot of talent in it. It's got Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, Kelly Jones, Sean Gatt, Peter J. Tomasi. It's got who else is drawing stuff in here? Peter Snedgeberg. What's the name? Paul Pelletier.
I recognize that name.
And it was, and this is kind of like the world of Geiger. It's got other characters from the Geiger world, like what's this guy's name? Safari Bob, Barney, his dog, Redcoat. I think they're going to do a mini series with this guy Redcoat, who was an immortal British soldier from the American Revolutionary War. So it introduced a lot of those. But I was kind of like, I bought the Geiger miniseries, but it was a B to me. I enjoyed it, but it was a B. So I was like, ooh, do I want to pay $8? So I was really like, man, 2 comics this week are going to cost me $16, and one of them's not even a comic. So I really kind of vacillated back and forth for whether I should put these on my pull list. But then it was like, I remember getting. I was like, holy cow, do I have enough money in? Because I usually use cash in the comic shop. I'm one of these people who still uses cash. And I think I had like $48 on me. And I was like, I saw all these comics, and the bill came up to like $44. I'm like, ooh, I hope I have enough, because I'm like 10 comics and 4 a piece, and right. 2 are double. Ooh, I'm closing in on that $48. So I can't put a cap ending extra, but
yeah, that Geiger.
What was that?
Yeah, that Geiger 80-page giant looks like the type of comic that in 15 years you're going to go through your collection. Oh yeah, I remember buying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got 16 issues of Spawn for that price.
Spawn. But it turned into, and so I wasn't a big fan of this cover, even though it's supposed to be, it's supposed to look like in DC 80-page giant, of course, but I don't really have a lot of nostalgia for DC 80-page giants, so I wasn't. So when it came out too, I remember I looked at all the other covers because once again, I can order on the final order cutoff. I can order whichever cover I want, and this was the best one. I mean, they had other covers by other guys, and it was all just one of the characters standing there. I was like, you know what? I think this is the best cover, even though I'm not that fond of it. Which makes it even harder to pay $8 for it. When it's $8 and it doesn't even have a cover I really like. But it feels great. Whatever paper they used here, it's like a matte finish paper that's got a little bit of a texture to it. This is the best feeling comic of the week. I picked it up and went, ooh, that feels nice. So if nothing else, pick up this comic just to feel it, because it wins in comic and hand feel for the week.
You could have
mouth feel for food. This is hand feel for a comic. I got to put it down. I'm just petting this comic. It's not going to be in mint condition.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not going to be a 9.8 after you get done.
Hey, at least I didn't bleed on it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have many 80-page giants from DC?
No.
No.
Although I bought a couple during that time in the early noughties when they brought back the 80-page giant.
I've got a few. I don't have a whole bunch. Like Batman Family, I think had some 80-page giants.
Yeah, I only have a handful too, because I wasn't a big DC fan as a kid in the 70s, so I never
had several of the giant war books they did for $1, but I don't know how many pages they had in them. Some of them probably had more than 80 pages, actually.
Like a couple of my friends who were big DC fans loved those 80 and 100-page giants because they had the Golden Age stuff in them.
Right.
And that was their only chance to read Golden Age stuff was in those 80-page giants or whatever they were. But it was funny. Whenever I got one, I disliked the Golden Age stuff even more than I disliked the 70s DC stuff. So for me, I just wasn't a huge fan of those at all. You know what the one it was a Batman Family, maybe number 2. It was Robin and Batgirl versus Benedict Arnold. And the reason I loved it was that I was a history fan. So I loved that Benedict Arnold was in it. That was my favorite DC comic as a kid. Because Benedict Arnold was the villain.
How did Benedict Arnold show up in the Batman?
I do not even remember. Okay. I'm gonna have to read that one. I think I have it. I lost my original copy many years ago, but I think I got another copy over the years since then.
Right.
But like I said, that was like my favorite DC comic as a kid because of Benedict Arnold.
Wow.
He was my favorite DC Comics villain. You know what? Whenever someone asks me who my favorite DC Comics villain is, I'm going to have to go with Benedict Arnold.
Wow.
Why not? I was also glad to see Chris Gerusso's G-Man got an appearance on the back cover of this. But you know what's weird? That they have a lot of stuff in here like Liefeld pulls all Extreme Genesis titles, including Youngblood, to his self-publishing. So they go through all the events that happen on Image. First Image Marvel crossover, Badrock, Wolverine. And they still stuff, Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer #1 starts an entire line of books approved by Frazetta himself. Witchblade becomes the third Image comic to reach issue 100. Future superstar Kieran Gillen's first comic, Phonogram, debuts this month with art by Jamie McKelvey. Fear Agent #1 features art by Tony Moore and Sean Parsons, and is writer Rick Remender's first work for Image. And they mentioned when some books, what is this? August 1996, first unanimous vote to oust Rob Liefeld as an Image partner is taken. But it wasn't until where was it? I think they have a second vote. Oh, August 8th. So the first vote was in August, and the second vote was August 8th. I guess they get the exact date on that. Second unanimous vote to oust Liefeld is taken, with shareholder Mark Silvestri sitting in. Absent partner Liefeld tenders his resignation via fax as the meeting begins. So they even give you the bad stuff that happened to him. Rick Remender and Wes Craig's Deadly Class begins. It will become a sci-fi series in 2019, be nominated for several TV industry awards. Did you guys ever see the Deadly Class TV show? I don't think I ever did.
Heard of it.
And they have, but I was looking at. They didn't note that the Walking Dead series ended. I found that a little odd because I noted occasionally when other series ended. But I would think that would be a big note of Walking Dead 192 comes out, series ends.
Right.
But for some reason they didn't note that, or I didn't. I looked for it, so I don't think I missed it.
When was the book published?
This?
Yes.
This just came out this week.
Oh, okay. Never
This is
mind.
brand new.
I was thinking maybe at the time they wrote it up.
No. It even says, what does it say here? I worked on this project for the better part of 2021, writing, rewriting, correcting, scanning, laying out. Jim Valentino did the design on this. That's why it's so terrible. He's not a designer. I know there will undoubtedly be errors no matter how tried. Yeah. You don't put an extra line in. Oh, okay. Valentino's a good artist, but he's not a. They should have got a full-time designer to do this. It would have looked better, especially the typography. Like I said, that's amateur typography.
I'm getting the idea that you don't like any artist whose last name ends in Tino.
Did I ever tell you my favorite Jim Valentino story?
I don't remember.
Not that it had anything to do with him personally.
Well, I don't remember.
This is I remember being surprised in the early 90s when he became a big Marvel guy with Guardians of the Galaxy, because in the 80s he was an alternative cartoonist.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of these Bigfoot cartoonists who did Normal Man was his, which was a parody.
Yeah.
So it was all comedy, and it was all comedy drawing. And he had this one book out, which was it was named Valentino. Probably the late 80s, sometime 86, 80s. I have it somewhere in my shelf. But it was one of these autobiographical, alternate, indie comics. There have been a lot of them over years. And it had a picture of him on the cover, I remember. Kind of in the, the Robert Crumb Keep on Truckin' tradition, where he's kind of walking at an angle and his foot is really big in the front kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he may have been naked or something with, his parts strategically covered up. And my local comic shop, since it was a #1 for that week, they had a little there was a point of purchase display that you know how comic shops have. They used to have like point of purchase displays where you can put a single comic. You can put a stack of like 10 comics in the little cardboard frame. They had Valentino in that cardboard frame that week. You know, I bought my copy. There's these two kids there. They must have been 10, 12 years old. And the one looks at the other and scoffs and goes, "Who'd buy a comic about a guy with bare feet?" And went about their business. And I still remember, I was just like, that just cracks me up to this day. Who would buy a comic about a guy with bare feet?
Worked for Donald Duck.
Benedict Arnold sounds better than the Benjamin Franklin story from Doctor Strange. I don't know if I ever read that one.
You know, you could actually make a comic about Benjamin Franklin's life that would be pretty damn funny.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading, I read the John Adams biography from, what's his name, McCullough, that came out, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago now. Real good biography, but a good chunk of it was Adams and Franklin in Paris, you know, trying to secure money for
things.
the Americans from the French.
Mm-hmm.
And John Adams was just this no-nonsense, get-the-job done kind of guy. And Ben Franklin was this, we got to establish relationships kind of guy.
Wow.
So it's like John Adams would do all the work during the day, and Ben Franklin would go to all the parties at night and show up the next day with work for Franklin to do.
Right.
That was kind of interesting. Ben Franklin's an interesting guy, all right.
Yeah, he very much is. He's quite the character.
Ben Franklin had an affair with Clea, didn't care for it. I imagine he would. He was a well-known ladies' man in Paris.
Although he had a reputation for liking, well, what in the time would be described as cougars. would not be described as cougars, but that's what he liked. I think he wrote that elderly women were the best to have sex with because they couldn't get pregnant and they were desperate.
Looks like Terrence sent me a Riff, Read, and Tear. Riff, Read. Oh, I got the wrong thing. How do I download this? Where is download? Come on, I just want to download the page. Okay, I can go just like that. Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can save this image. Okay. I saved that image.
Too bad you couldn't save those image books.
Ha! I couldn't save that image book. That's for sure. How come? Oh. It labels things. It puts. I hate when the web puts large after JPEG, so it doesn't know it's a JPEG. Dun dun dun. All right, let me give this a share. Let's see. Comic Cracks. There we go. We got San Francisco comic book, we got Snarf, and we got Slow Death. Interesting. Interesting.
Yes. What might choose?
Okay, I got that one.
Okay, so I'm going to read Snarf, rip San Francisco, and slab Slow Death.
Why are you doing that? Why ripping San Francisco? Special guest appearance. Comic Cracks Undergrounds. Because I think
Well-
I want to slab San Francisco. I like that cover a lot.
Yeah, it just doesn't interest me that much. I want to read
No?
Snarf because I want to know if that scene is actually inside the comic.
Ah.
I'm going to read Slow Death. I'm going to slab Snarf, and I'm going to rip up San Francisco.
Rip up You're both ripping up San Francisco. Wow, that's the one that's the one that oh, he's ripping up San Francisco because of the yellow.
I didn't think about that, but now that
That's why he ripped up the first one, because of the yellow and the
Yes.
logo. So that's why he's ripping San Francisco.
I'm just burnt out on Robert Crumb.
I am not burnt out on Robert Crumb, so I am slabbing San Francisco. Snarf almost looks like Tardy.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Sure.
I'm
I
not
think
a
I'm
big
with-
fan of the
I'm-
red background on that one either, but yeah.
I think I'm with Paolo. I want to see if that scene is in Snarf. So I'm going to read Snarf, slab San Francisco, and I'm going to have to rip up Slow Death. Oh, well. It's always a shame to rip up, but that's the game. Got to rip up something. But I like that Crumb cover. I really do. The knife to the throat. The knife to the throat is really disturbing on the Snarf cover. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Special guest star.
Plus, from a distance, it looks like Miss Piggy's on the San Francisco boat.
Miss Piggy. Turn that down. Dennis Kitchen, Robert Crumb, and Greg Irons. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know Dennis Kitchen drew. Or did he publish
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He's got a really cartoony art style.
As in that cover of Snarf.
hmm
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, he has a particular fondness for Ernie Bushmiller.
Ah. There are a lot of... I actually have an original Nancy strip from... I forget... Oh, I can't... What's the artist's name? He was the artist who was drawing it in the aughts. But he used to sell his stuff on eBay, the originals on eBay, for not that expensive. So I ended up buying one.
Yeah.
What is it? I'm going to have to look for it now. You guys talk amongst yourself for a moment. I'm going to go back here.
Amongst.
Yeah, but I always thought that Crumb is something that you have to take in small doses.
I prefer Crumb in small doses.
If you get a best of Crumb, you're better off.
Yeah, I suppose you don't have to read everything that he did.
Yeah.
That he did.
Right.
Like I've got an anthology book of Crumb called Women. That's pretty good. And the Book of Genesis one is pretty good too. Where is my Nancy? I've got everything in Mylar. That's what I do with my original art. That I buy, which I haven't got any in a while. I put it in. I keep all the pages in big Mylar pages, which makes them slippery sometimes. Do you guys have any original art?
Some, no.
Hey,
What's your favorite original art piece you have?
I've got Sandman sketches by Mike Kaluta and Charles Vess. I had a Mark Hempel original Sandman page, but I had to sell it.
Ah,
I got a good price for it. I got 10 times what I paid for it.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Original art, the most famous. Oh, there we go. Let's see. What is this artist's name? Gus Gilchrist. That's it. Sluggo out in his weed garden. Let me see. Did I put the... This letter serves as an official certificate of authenticity from Guy Gilchrist. Oh, I didn't save. I may have... I like to save how much I paid for it, but I don't always print it out.
Right.
But that's what I do. It's actually on this piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's on... Here's the comic strip. And then this is, it's like a piece of, see that blue line on there?
Mm-hmm.
That means this is actually a piece of Marvel mechanical board from back in the day.
Yeah.
When they actually used, I still have some Marvel mechanical board that we used to do bullpen stuff on to get the stuff ready. But once we had digital, there was no need for it. It looks like I use photo corners. See that little shiny corner right there?
Yeah.
And so I mount, looks like I did this twice. I mount the comic strip on photo corners. Then I mounted my, this is even, there's more Marvel board. This is Marvel for paste up only board. There's the Marvel Comics logo. This is the stuff. This isn't, artists didn't draw on this. This isn't drawing quality. This is like paste up quality. I had a bunch of this too, because once we went digital, they didn't need it anymore. So then I mounted that piece in this piece. So now I've got it mounted twice, so it's extra stiff. Then I stick it in an 11 by 17 piece of Mylar. That's how I like to look at my original art, because I like to hold it and handle it and look at it up close. So I usually keep it in Mylar.
Don't bleed on it.
Don't bleed on it. That's a good thing I put that Band-Aid on. See, Nancy is growing corn and peppers and tomato, and there's Sluggo growing weeds. They made careful to make sure it didn't say weed, I bet. Even though that's what I'm pretending what it is. Sluggo's growing weed.
That would explain a whole lot.
Sluggo and his weed. Guy Gilchrist. That's who the no, it was funny. He when he took over Nancy, he got a lot of publicity and a lot of people liked Nancy again, and they were talking about Nancy. Mm-hmm. Then as he did it over the years, no one cared anymore.
Right.
And then I think just last year, I can't remember her name, a woman took over Nancy, and everybody loved it, and everybody thought it was cool, and everybody loved Nancy again. Now she's slowly being ignored. It's like Nancy really depends on someone being new to Nancy and having a new take, because eventually everybody gets bored with it because it's a really kind of simple strip.
Yeah, I suppose it's like doing Little Lulu. Who the hell wants to do more Little Lulu?
Right.
Nancy's a lot more.
Love Dennis Kitchen, so I'd slab that one. What was that?
As Nancy's always a little more surreal than Little Lulu was.
Yeah. Kitchen had a great style. Crumb is the gateway to a lot more interesting stuff. Yeah, he's the... Kayfabe did a show on slow death. Not really my thing. Yeah, I did watch that one. Though I did just this week watch the first part of Kayfabe reading the Stan Lee deposition. Pardon me.
I've got a whole bunch of those saved to watch later that I haven't watched yet.
Yeah.
Those in the Gaiman McFarlane trial.
Me too. I didn't finish watching that one. But there's something I'd push back on that Stan Lee said, and it's not specific to him. as sort of a narrative we always hear in society. Because Stan Lee was given his testimony. And actually, yeah, it was a deposition, so it wasn't in court. It was in wherever you give depositions. So there was no judge there. But I think you do get sworn in for a deposition. And he was talking about who did, this work being done in the 60s and how it got done and this got done. And one of the things he said was he was talking about how much things sold and it didn't sell and this and that. And this is something I hear all the time from people. He said he was talking to Martin Goodman. And Martin Goodman was saying he couldn't give the artists more money because somebody who'd just been asking for more money. He couldn't give the artists more money because things didn't always sell. And if things didn't sell, the artist still got the same amount of money. He wasn't firing people because things didn't sell. Once again, they should be lucky to have jobs. And he said that Stan was recounting this story. He's like, yeah, and he agreed. He's like, Martin Goodman was like, well, I'm the one who takes all the risks. So if a book doesn't sell, and I'm like, I hear that all the time. I'm the one who takes all the risks. It's like, no, you don't. Martin Goodman got his big old salary no matter if the book sold or not. And he was running a limited liability corporation. The whole point of corporations is that is to minimize your risk. Right. And so often I hear someone say, well, he's the guy who took all the risk. It was his money. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. He was taking no risk. That wasn't his money. But no one ever pushes back against that. I just want somebody I'm just going to push back against that every time I hear it. I'm like, no, Martin Goodman took no risks with Marvel Comics. He got his big fat salary no matter what. And if Marvel Comics went out of business, he wouldn't lose a dime of his personal money. Because Marvel Comics wasn't his personal money. That was a corporation he was running. That was all the bank's money. And they made their money too. But that like just annoyed me listening to Stan Lee's testimony and him taking Martin Goodman's side, because Martin Goodman was the one taking all the risks. It's like, no, he wasn't.
Stan was very much a company man.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. No doubt about it. And I understand Stan Lee, too, because I understand Stan Lee taking credit for everything that wasn't nailed down. Because everybody in comics those days, especially if you're at Marvel Comics was the bottom of the barrel, Timely.
Yeah.
All those guys, Stan Lee desperately wanted to be somebody because being in comics was not respected. You didn't make a ton of money. So I can understand. I'm not saying he was right, but I can understand he was kind of biting and clawing his way to some kind of trying to get some kind of respectability and some kind of payday.
No.
Doesn't make it right that he stepped over other people to do that, but at least I understand it. Yo, how you doing, Saul?
I actually got a comic this week.
What'd you get?
I got this directly from the French publisher. It's the 4th edition of Concrew.
What is that?
Concrew.
Okay, you've talked about that one before.
The story in this one, I don't think is quite as good as the first 3, just because he's introducing some more characters you haven't seen before. Mm-hmm. But the art is still just freaking fantastic.
Right.
It's good stuff. Took about a month to get here. So.
Okay. Concrew.
No.
Yeah, those Great Gatsbys are the last thing I ordered right from a publisher. Did those come from France?
Yeah, but they're printed in the floppies are printed in English and in French. So that's the English edition.
Okay. A lot of reason the comics in the old days did nothing for the artists is that the mob was into distribution. Someone makes trouble, they get, oh yeah, there was always that.
Everything.
But Martin Goodman had his own distribution company up until the late 50s, and that wasn't mobbed up.
Right.
Didn't know a publisher that went out of business or went away, then years later started up again? Is Heavy Metal one?
Several publishers.
Sometimes they buy Valiant. There's one of the biggest ones I can think of.
Kitchen Sink came back briefly as a Dark Horse imprint.
Continuity, even.
Yeah.
I mean, Continuity Studios never went away, but Continuity Comics went away through most of the 80s, then came back. Did Charlton ever go away and come back, or did they just whittle down little by little?
I don't remember Charlton coming back, but I could be wrong.
Though there are people now publishing sort of little boutique comics under the Charlton name. I know Mort Todd is doing that.
They didn't have a period where they went full reprint around 77.
Yeah.
And then put out some new stories around 81, I think.
Where they disappeared from my radar in like the late 70s and then came back with some new material. I was like, oh, cool. Charlton Comics is back.
I think ACG did that in the 90s where they came out with a couple of reprint books.
And Harvey Comics.
Yeah, new investors bought Heavy Metal, right?
Classic Illustrated came back years later.
It did? As a publisher, or?
Yeah.
When did it come back?
Late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
They're all reprints.
Yeah. Because I know Marvel kind of did their own version of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then First Comics did their own version of it.
That's true. Yeah.
I didn't realize that Classic Illustrated came back too. I wonder if they're in the public domain, their name.
No,
they're
not public domain.
Because there's a lot of old comic stuff that's in the public domain now. So
there is.
Golden Age stuff we've never heard of. But somebody owns the Charlton Comics name, I think it is, in some of their material.
Well, I'm sure somebody does.
Some Canadian. Because I know Mort Todd was trying to track down the stuff because Mort actually bought. There was an auction of Charlton stuff, and he bought a lot of stats and things so that he could reproduce artwork from it. This is a long time ago he bought them, but he's been recoloring stuff and putting out Charlton sort of books for the last 5 or 10 years. I can't even remember what it is now. And there's another group putting out Charlton stuff too. First Comics had American Flag, amazing IP. I wish they'd make that into a movie. Yeah, you know what's I was just watching this week's Boba Fett show, and they had Luke Skywalker in it. Mark Hamill de-aged, so he was a computer graphic. And I always think of American Flag when I see something like that, because that's what happened to Reuben Flagg. He was an actor who got put out of work because they made a hologram of him. Oh, that's something I also learned reading this Image timeline is, do you remember when the hardcover of American Flag came out? When was that? Here we go. November 2008. They came out with a hardcover of American Flag, and it says, Howard Chaykin's seminal creator-owned work, American Flag, is reprinted in a deluxe hardcover edition for the first time. Recolored by Larson and Stevenson and co-published by Image and Dynamic Forces. With a new story by Chaykin in his first work with Image. I didn't know there was a new story in that. And I also didn't know Image published it. I remember seeing a Dynamic Forces logo on it, but I don't remember it was Image. But I don't think they've issued a new printing of that since then. 2008. But I was surprised to find out Image published that hardcover. Oh, there's that boring Jupiter's Legacy cover. It's on the cover of this, too. You can get a 9.8 of that for $30 plus shipping. All over eBay.
I can, but why?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like, I want one just as a conversation piece, but I still haven't pulled the trigger on anything because I just don't want to pay the money.
Right.
Flag had amazing letter. Yeah, he really Ken Brunizak, what's his name? Oh, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. I really want
I
to
know
read.
what you're talking about. I don't know how to pronounce his last name either.
Yeah, I don't think
Brunizak?
Spiegelman's interested in published in. Didn't we? It was last week we found it was Spiegelman's wife is the art director for
Yeah, it's
New
Francois.
Yorker. So I'm sure he's got plenty of money and doesn't want the headache of publishing. You know, publishing raw is a young man's game, especially if you've got plenty of money and other work to do.
Yeah, it's like the old quote is, "How do you get $1 million out of comics? Is you start off with $2 million."
Yeah, I cannot explain to you how much work it is to do a comic. There's a reason, you know, it's a full-time job, both for the editors and the people who actually make the physical comic, the artists and writers. It is a lot of work to make a comic. So I imagine Art Spiegelman doesn't want to put together raw. And it's expensive, too. You know, you got to have the money to pay everybody. Unless you're one of these anthologies that doesn't pay anybody. And then
you don't last very long.
Plenty of them around, and they don't last very long because no one's getting paid. Let's see, another comic I got this week. The Magic Order Volume 2, Number 4. Stuart Immonen artwork. Oh no, he's a junkie. He's fallen amongst the needles. Mark Miller writing. And
terrible cover.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. At least it's telling a story. You know, not a story I'm terribly interested in. But I like Stuart Immonen's artwork.
Mm.
And the story's kind of, so far it's following the Mark Miller formula. For the first 4, if there's a 6-issue minis, for the first 4, even into the 5th issue sometimes, the heroes are just getting their asses kicked. Then the 6th issue, they kick ass. Though if I remember correctly, I can't remember, the Magic Order, the first volume, actually had a plot twist at the end. And I was like, whoa, Mark Miller never gives you twist endings. I was like, whoa, a twist ending in a Mark Miller book? But it's a solid read. If Mark Miller is very artist dependent on me. If I like the artist on a Mark Miller written book, I'll go for it. If I don't like the artist,
yeah, it makes sense.
I'm not going to go for it. His writing isn't a big enough a draw for me to put up with second-rate art. But he rarely has second-rate art. He's got that Netflix money.
That's one of the things I always hated about those Alan Moore titles that Avatar would always put out. They just didn't have very good artists on them.
Yeah. I haven't read too much of that
It's
stuff.
like they almost went out of their way to get mediocre artists.
I'm sure they didn't pay a ton.
That's probably why.
And Avatar isn't creator-owned either. So those artists, all they get is a paycheck. There's no back end for them at all. There's no even if we win the lottery with this, you get paid. So that's not going to draw in top level 10. And as soon as those guys probably could get a better paying job. They're moving on.
Yeah.
Without even finishing whatever series they're doing, because there's no reason for them to finish it. Like some of the best artists I've seen from Avatar is in that Uber, that Jamie McKelvey book.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some good art. Mostly, I think there were only 2 artists on it, maybe even 1, who both are pretty darn good. But that book should have been finished up a year and a half ago, and there's like 1 story arc left, and they're just not doing it. Jared, in your time in the Bullpen, were there any artists, or did you guys go around New York galleries and get inspired by the pop art trend? You go, there was no pop art trend in New York City in the 90s. That's the 60s. But lots of artists came into Marvel at that time. Like the ones I knew best were like Mark Teixeira was always hanging out there. And there were other guys. I spent and some guys only came in like the California guys would only come in once every year or two. Like Jay Lee hung out for a week. I remember that because he was such a nice guy. Jay Lee hung out in the Bullpen for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And like Joe Quesada always used to be there before he got a job at Marvel. Even he always used to come up and hang out, and because the artists had to go up there and meet people and network with the editors so they could get more work. Alex Saviuk was up there a lot in the early 90s. Who else was up there? Klaus Janson was up there a lot. He was always up there, I remember. Probably guys like... What was that?
Did you ever have artists that would come in outside the comics field just wanting to take a tour?
Not usually. It was usually actors.
Okay.
Hulk Hogan was up there once. The band Gwar was up there. Sebastian Bach came up.
Yeah.
William Shatner was there. I didn't get to see him, though. They wouldn't bring William Shatner down to the Bullpen because they were afraid we were going to make fun of him. I don't know why he got special treatment.
Right.
As if anybody, I don't think anybody would have upset William Shatner. Who else was there? But yeah, there were the regular people who came up all the time.
Excuse me.
Rick Parker was there all the time. He was a letterer, and he also drew Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
It was in the early 90s, before Ike Perlmutter took over, it was a really kind of special place. Once Ike Perlmutter took over, he didn't want any freelancers up there. Effing Bill Shatner, yeah. The Savages and the Volt. Yeah, that was us. And that was weird. And of course, John Romita worked there. He was the art director.
Yeah.
So he was there. And Michael Golden was the art director after John Romita. So he was up there for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once Ike Perlmutter took over, it wasn't the same place. It took a few years for it to not be the same place. Yeah. But by the time I left in 2005, it was kind of a regular office. There was no more Bullpen anymore. My band did Jerry Springer with Gwar. Ah, cool. I think Green Jello was up there too.
Boy, there's
it became Green Jelly.
Yeah.
Because Jello sent him a cease and desist.
I remember that. And then they put an umlaut over the letter and claimed it was different.
I remember a Foreigner stopped up there once and no one cared. It's like 1991.
You're cold as ice.
And all of a sudden, like Mark Grunwald was showing them around, and he goes, "Hey, everybody, it's Foreigner," and there was just like silence.
Crickets.
And we were like, "Hey, Foreigner."
It could have made it even better if it was Foreigner and Toto.
Do bullpens exist anymore? Not at Marvel. Not at Marvel, that's for sure. They make the letterers do the production. They started doing that like 15 years ago.
Speaking of bullpens, I saw an article a few months ago where some animal rights organization was mad because baseball teams use the word bullpen. I'm like,
Gotta get mad at something.
like, really?
Yeah.
Really, guys? Come on.
No, I don't think I don't remember many New York sports team guys visiting. Now that you mention it, no. Sebastian Bach was real nice, though. I didn't even know who he was at the time.
Yeah.
But he was hanging out in the bullpen and talking to people and showing them. Everybody was gathered around. Everybody was looking at comics with him. So, and Hulk Hogan was very nice too. But I was like, everybody was like, "Oh, Sebastian Bach's here, Sebastian," and I was like, "Who's Sebastian Bach?" I didn't know in 1991.
And Sebastian's like, "Who's Jared Osborne?"
Yeah, he didn't.
What about Wu-Tang Clan?
I didn't visit many galleries in my spare time for inspiration. We visited comic art shows more than we visited galleries. Only because I've done a lot of, I still do fine art painting, but I don't always like to go out and look at fine art painting. I find that tiring for some reason. Johann Sebastian Bach, that's the guy. JSB. I looked at a lot of galleries and museums in my college years, but not so much after college. Occasionally, we'd go to shows that someone had, but I didn't look. I didn't look in the fine art galleries a lot. I should have, but I somehow didn't.
I would have lived at the Society of Illustrators.
I was up there a couple of times. My friend Ed is a member of them. He got married up there. So I've been up there. Matter of fact, the last time I was there, they held Flo Steinberg's memorial was at the Society of Illustrators.
Gotcha.
And I think the year before that, they had a show honoring John Romita at the Society of Illustrators. I was there for that, too, and he was there.
Okay.
So that was good to see him in Virginia for the first time in many years.
All right.
John in Virginia. But yeah, I can't remember any sports guys visit. I remember hearing rumors of Jeter visiting once or twice, but I never saw him. And I don't know if any of them are true. But I have a vague memory of a rumor of Jeter visiting. I don't know how reliable that is.
No members of Wu-Tang Clan?
I don't think so. But
I know that half of those guys liked comics.
There may have been, and I didn't know. Because I know they put out a couple of comics with rap guys. Like the Booyah Tribe had their own custom comic. I remember that one. And I think some of those guys were up there, but I never saw them. They were in editorial, hanging out with the editors or something. Which were on the same floor as us, but we didn't always get to see everyone.
You didn't get a visit from Street Poet Ray?
No. I did not. No Street Poet Ray.
Yeah, I remember KRS-One. Okay, so Bob Marley had a comic, and but I remember KRS-One had a comic. Only one issue came out.
Yeah.
I've always noticed that music-related, especially rock music-related comics, usually aren't very good.
Mort Todd ran Marvel Music in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I know he had lots of connections and rock guys up there, but I don't think he got to put out many comics.
Yeah, so there was Voodoo Lounge with the Rolling Stones. There was the Tales of the Tough Gong with Bob Marley. Break the Chain with KRS-One.
There was an Alice Cooper one by Michael Zulli in the 90s, too.
Yeah, that was The Last Temptation of Alice. That was written by Neil Gaiman.
Right. That was a Marvel Music one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But Mort, they didn't let Mort put out a lot of stuff because it was too expensive. These rock and roll guys were too expensive.
Yeah, there was another company called Revolutionary that did some really crappy comics on several.
Oh, they did those biographical comics, right?
Yeah, they're not very good, and I think their publisher got murdered, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. My friend Ed did which I helped him on. This is like once again early 90s. He's looking for some work, comic book artist, worked in the Bullpen with me, and he got this job doing one of those biographical comics. And it was DeForest Kelley.
Yeah.
I forget who
I
put it
actually
out.
have that one. Maybe.
Well, what happened was he was getting paid no money for it.
Right.
My friend John and I were helping him out. I was doing a lot of the inking on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed was taking some liberties with the script to try and make it interesting. Like at one point he said, and then DeForest Kelley, couldn't find any work but in genre work, like in westerns and sci-fi. So Ed drew him like joining the Village People. He drew the Village People with DeForest Kelley. And he put lots of little humorous bits in it.
Nice.
And when he handed it in to the publisher flipped out. Didn't like it. Refused to pay him. And then had another artist copy most of it. So that was my brief stint doing some sort of one of those autobiographical revolutionary. I can't remember which company did it.
Yeah, most of the autobiographical comics just aren't anything to get excited about.
Oh, they were terrible. Yeah. Knowing the rates they were paying, they were terrible.
I mean, even from other companies, it just usually not great.
Some comics now come with vinyl records attached, super gimmicky mark. Yeah, that was the one. What's that one I've been buying? What's the furthest place you've been from here? Issue number 1 was supposed to come with a vinyl record, or there was a version you could get of it with a vinyl record.
Right.
But the problem was you couldn't get it because they set the print run for the vinyl record before the final order cutoff came in.
That's really dumb.
Yes. I imagine to get it out on time, because I was actually thinking about, I was actually going to order one with the record just kind of at, I think it was $15 with the record. And I was thinking about, I was 80% sure I was going to buy one just sort of as a conversation piece thing.
Right.
But then when the final order cutoff came from my shop, it wasn't there. And my Roy, my owner, comic shop owner, told me why. I was like, oh, that's why I couldn't order it at final order cutoff, because they already cut off the orders. They missed out on a lot of sales.
They got to go back to the flexi discs again.
Yeah, I think this was actual vinyl it came with.
Yeah.
Why vinyl records? Because there's still vinyl record collectors. I was only getting it because of the gimmick. I'm not a vinyl record collector, but there's a certain amount of people. There's like 100,000 vinyl record collectors out there.
Oh, there's more than that. Yeah.
I would just guess. That's just a number I'm putting out. I'm just saying you could put out a vinyl record and sell 50,000 copies. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
Just in the music biz. I'm not in the comic book biz, but I'm just saying, if you were, would you say you could, like, if you were a pretty big band so you could put out a pressing and sell 50,000 of them?
Yeah, it depends on the band, but yeah.
Right. Depends on the band,
Yeah, you put out something by Metallica or U2, and it's going to go like that.
Right. So there's enough vinyl record collectors that you can put out like a comic with a specialty vinyl record,
Right.
and they sold it out. As a matter of fact, they left money on the shelf. Mm-hmm. Mixing fetishes, comics and records. Yeah, there you go. That's what those hip hop variants are from Marvel, mixing fetishes. Because I don't know one single person who's bought any of those hip hop variant covers, but they made them for 2 or 3 years. Combine 2 unrelated collector's items into one super collector's item. Total bullcrap. Yeah.
Hey, it's been done for years and years and years, man. It's just all about the marketing.
Mm-hmm. Just convince people that, hey, they almost convinced me to buy one. And I don't want anything. I don't have any vinyl record. I don't care one bit about vinyl records. Yet just because of the gimmick, I almost bought one.
If they'd only come out with the Mr. Microphone to go along with it, you would have snapped it up, right?
Broadcast over any radio.
We'll be back to pick you up later.
Another comic I got this week is the final issue of Terry Moore's Serial. Looking like a cover of Jupiter's Legacy.
Yeah, that's
just when you mentioned that before, now I see.
I'm picturing these Strangers in Paradise covers in my mind, and I see that. It's like, but it doesn't even look like the same person, really.
This is the final issue.
The interior does.
Yeah, the final issue. Nice ending. Our little girl, who's really a demon, tracking down a serial killer. Good stuff. I liked the end. Little bit of twist at the end. That was good. That, added a little bit more to the story, but was fun. I'm in the Terry Moore Appreciation Club. I'll buy whatever his next project is too. So, all I need to know is that he's doing it and I'm there buying it. So I have to make sure I get it on my pull list in time this time, because I had to get a second printing of Serial #1 because I somehow didn't get it on my pull list in time. I got to watch his videos more often so I know what he's doing next. And he also put out in between. What's the last one he did? 5 years in Serial. He actually put out a 90-page graphic novel that I never got. Because at first he only offered it through his website, which meant $10 shipping.
Was that Echo?
No. Echo was I forget what the name of it is. And then he offered it through Diamond, and I just kind of like it with sort of graphic novels or trade paperbacks. I'm always like, I'll get it later. So I never got that one. I'm gonna have to get that one. Less effort in the cover than any inside panel. Yeah. Well, I can understand, especially in issue 10, the lack of effort of them. No one is buying issue 10 who hasn't bought issue 1 through 9. He's busy putting all his effort into the hardcover omnibus.
Now that you brought it up, Eric Shanhauer is like way overdue for some new Age of Bronze.
Oh, way over. It's been how long has it been since an Age of Bronze? A decade?
I don't think it's been quite that long, but it's been a while.
You're going to make me go look on my shelf. Hold on a second. I think it's back here.
That was my plan all along, to make you get up and go do something.
Luckily, I know just where it is. I don't have to go search for
And
it.
if Paul Chadwick ever watches this video, you're past due for some concrete.
There's our last issue of Age of Bronze. 14. July 2013.
So 9 years, closing in on 9 years.
Yeah. I'm guessing he wasn't making a lot of money with Age of Bronze.
Probably not.
But one of my favorites.
Yeah, I always like how you would include the bibliographies and all the background stuff too.
For anyone who doesn't know Age of Bronze, he's telling the story of the Trojan War. And he's telling it in a very historical way, too.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was the first graphic novel. I have it, as a matter of fact, I have it in with my issues of Age of Bronze. I've been a subscriber to Archaeology magazine since the early 90s.
I remember buying that off the newsstand many, many years ago.
I now have a digital subscription to it. But they actually reviewed the first collected edition of this, and they were very impressed with his historicalness.
Right. Let me ask a question since you brought up digital subscriptions. If your subscription lapses, do you lose access to all the back issues?
I don't know.
I just wondered. I know different publishers have different ways of approaching that.
But I can download my issues and keep them on my machine, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
And there was a few issues it let me download as a PDF, and then others it didn't. The Archaeology's digital subscription is pretty terrible in terms of I lost access. All of a sudden, it told me your password doesn't work. There's no reason for my password not to work. But there's no reset your password thing in it's the app that's terrible. I even emailed them saying telling me my password, and other people have complained about this. If you look at the app ratings, other people complained about the same thing.
I'm going to go into Abe Simpson mode for a second. With the exception maybe of Instagram, I can't think of any app that works as well as a well-designed website.
Yeah. I had to wait until they finally sent me an email that said, "Oh, your new issue is here." And way down at the bottom, it said something, "Password not working? Click here." So I reset my password, and that got the app working.
I've always just been curious about that, about digital subscriptions, as to whether or not you get to keep back
I ended up
issues
trying that because Archaeology is an expensive subscription because it's I think it's only six issues a year, but it's not a very big magazine, so it's like $40 for 6 issues a year. And I think the digital is half that.
One of the problems I have is I like a lot of the British history magazines, which are oversized, nice printed, and they're expensive.
Right. And then there's Ant #2 came out, which I had trouble following. I think I'm not sure, he was kind of switching between a fantasy, like I think Ant was trapped in her own mind at some point. And he was switching time periods in between her being trapped in her mind and I just had trouble following this issue. Not that it was, I didn't have trouble following any individual page kind of thing. But the overall theme, the overall story, I was a little confused on. But it had some really nice art. Eric Larson is doing sort of this open, he wanted to do a different style for this than the Savage Dragon. So he's doing sort of this open line style. There's a lot of not a lot of noodling in it, and it looks pretty cool. I really enjoyed the storytelling and the art style in this, and the way he made it distinctive from the Savage Dragon. So it was a solid B comic. I've got a lot of solid B comics lately.
If you think about it, there's nothing really wrong with being a solid B comic.
Nope. There is, and you know what it is? Lake Wobegon syndrome. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
That's where at the end of Lake Wobegon, at the end of Garrison Keillor's Prairie Home Companion show, which is about Lake Wobegon. He says something about the women are all strong, the men good looking, and the children are all above average.
Above average. Yeah.
And something developed in schools where teachers started teaching to the standardized tests. So a lot of they would have way too many children above average, and they called that Lake Wobegon syndrome. When they're because there's no way that for that many students to be above average. And I think sometimes I go through, like, when my pull list gets bigger and smaller over the year as series ends. And at some points during the year, my average of A books is high. Like if I've got 20 books on my pull list, let's say 5 books a week, I've probably got 3 A books a week. But if I build that up to 30, I probably still have 3 A books a week. I filled in an extra 10 with maybe 1 or 2 A books and the rest B books.
Right.
So it's like all of a sudden the B books can expand faster than the A books can because there's more B books.
Law of averages, basically.
Yeah, law of averages says so.
Mhm.
I can't have 10 books and have them all be above average. Okay, not going to happen. But some weeks when I get 10 books, I want them all to be above average. I'm like, I want all my books to be to be A's. But
what is it? Do you still run into where you have the A's and the B's, and then you have Usagi Ojimbo over here by itself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Usagi, there's only A and A plus. That's all there is in Usagi. Matter of fact, have you watched Sleepy Reader's countdowns?
Not recently. I've got a whole bunch of videos saved. I want to watch the podcast he's been doing on Planetary.
Right. Hasn't been one of those in a little while.
Going with it too.
But since he's become a regular Usagi reader,
right?
He's like, here we go. Usagi is always number 1 or number 2 in his countdown. It's like, here we go again.
Telling people for years.
Yeah. That's like I said, there's only A and A plus Usagi. There's no B Usagi. It's all good.
Even feeling just one of these years, like he'll do a series that's maybe not quite as good as the other ones, and everybody's gonna be like, what the hell happened to Stan?
Good stuff. Let's see, what else do I have here? We got to show off Scott's favorite book. Spawn, number 326. Once again, it's better because it's not written by Todd McFarlane. It's written by Rory McConville. I guess Todd McFarlane is busy with the other Spawn books. But this one also stars Haunt. Do you remember him? I think Kirkman and McFarlane came up with Spawn 5 years ago or so. What about Saga, Jared? Do you like it? Yeah, I like Saga. But Saga's a B book to me. But like, B's are solid. I very much enjoyed the issue 55 last week of Saga. It picked up right where it left off. It's good. Saga to me is all about Brian K. Vaughan is another writer to me who is very artist dependent. And I like Fiona Staples. Saga is the first and only Fiona Staples thing I've read, and I enjoy it. But I don't find anything about Saga shocking. I've heard people like Sleepy Reader among them. He complained that Brian K. Vaughan's got to put one shocking thing in Saga, like always sex and nudity. And I'm like, that just doesn't shock me. Like in this last issue of Saga, We got the lead character topless in one part, and later on we had two characters having sex while they were talking about something. I just don't find that shocking. So to me, there's nothing shocking about Saga, even though to other people it is. Yeah,
I've never read Saga. I remember flipping. I remember somebody said this is like the new Star Wars, and I was flipping through it like I don't see any spaceships anywhere.
The new issue was 44 pages for $3, so I extra enjoyed it. But Saga to me is a B book. It's not an A book. A lot of other people put it in an A book, but to me it's a B. Which is like it's fine.
Somewhere in Texas, Gore Vidal's skin is crawling right now.
The one thing that I don't get is why are there so many BKV fans?
The only
They like
thing
his
I read
writing.
of his was Paper Girls, and I liked it.
Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan does not know how to finish stories.
Nobody does.
Lots of people don't know how
Yeah.
to finish stories.
That's not unusual. Which is why Saga is good for him. It's in the title. You don't have to finish the story. It's just one big long saga. It's going to keep going.
Because Ex Machina in particular, yeah, it was nobody saw coming because it wasn't there.
I don't remember it, which probably tells you it's not a very good, memorable ending. Because I read all of that. I bought Ex Machina month to month. I still have all the issues. I'll probably never read it again, and I don't remember the ending. Nice Tony Harrison.
I'm going to show you how my mind works. I'm going to go off on a tangent. I was thinking Saga, and of course, Norse sagas. Who wrote? There was a Viking-based series that came out within the past 3 or 4 years, and I can't remember who wrote it. And it's
Brian Wood?
Maybe.
Brian Wood. He did one for Vertigo.
Do you remember
Northlanders.
what the title of it was?
Northlanders.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
That was almost 15 years ago.
Yeah.
This shows you how my mind... Was that any good?
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I bought the collected editions of it, even though they weren't that well printed. I did not like why. Once again, Brian K. Vaughan is very artist dependent, and I didn't like the art on Y. So I never made it. I never made it through the first trade of Y: The Last Man. Despite having it on my shelf for 10 years, I eventually gave it to my friend who asked me to read it. I'm like, here, keep it. But Spawn might be as close as I get to a C-level book. And I'm getting it because it's still $2.99. As soon as it goes up in price, I'm dropping it. As long as it's still $2.99, I'm going to get it.
It's going to go up 1 penny, and that's going to cause it to go away. Huh?
But even though it's not Todd McFarlane anymore, I still skip these pages that are the TV text talking. If there's anything important in them, I'll never know because I'm not reading them. The writing's not that good. But the guy Haunt showed up. He's the what's his name? The Walking Dead guy and
Kirkman
and McFarlane's comic that came out. I don't know, it was somewhere in the timeline 5 years ago, which was not very good. And he brought that character back, and he's in this teaming up with Spawn. What more do you need to know?
In 1995, we would have gotten a special Spawn versus Haunt with gold foiled cover.
Now we have to settle for our Great Gatsby gold foiled covers.
Yeah, and they would have charged $2.99 for it back in '95.
Yeah, instead of $1.99. Huh. And here was another. This was the second book that was a surprise to me. I said 2 books were a surprise. The Cerebus one wasn't on my email that said it was coming in, and the Goon number 14 wasn't on there either.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, there's a surprise. And Eric Powell is doing it himself again. The last story arc was by somebody else who was doing a pretty good Eric Powell impression.
Right.
Can anyone explain Haunt? He seems cool, but I'm guessing it's all crap. Haunt is, I don't know. As far as I could tell from that issue, it was a guy and his brother. And once again, it's the suit, much like Spawn, it's the suit that gives him power. So, and his brother, so one guy is in the suit, and that gives him his haunt power, whatever it is. And it's called Haunt because his brother is dead and is a ghost. And no one else can see his brother, but the two brothers can talk to each other. Right. And in this one, I don't know if it was part of the Haunt series or not. Someone has poisoned Haunt, and he's dying slowly. So he's trying to track down the woman who poisoned him so he can save himself. And Spawn can see the ghost brother. So, other than that, I don't really know what it's about. Oh, here's an ad for the Ed Gein book, which I didn't get.
Part of me wants to see that just because it's by Eric Powell.
Yeah.
And part of me could care less because it's about a serial killer.
And yeah, I'm not a serial killer guy. And this was just a done-in-one book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And at the back it says, under construction, Albatross Exploding Funny Books coming soon. I don't know what that is.
I bet that's going to be a like an anthology or a...
I just noticed.
Let him do stream of consciousness kind of stuff would be my guess.
He's got Albatross Funny Books up in his logo now. I don't remember Funny Books being there. I know Albatross is his own company.
I'd be willing to bet it's just going to be a title where he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. I'll buy it.
I would too.
Did you hear what Eddie Gein done? The Goon.
Yeah, I like Eric Powell's work quite a bit.
Yeah. This stuff, he's one of those guys I'll buy anything he does. He's on that. Hillbilly, I think, is his favorite. I liked Hillbilly even better.
Hillbilly was really good.
Yeah. It was. Oh, and Nocterra has issue 7 out. I ended up liking this better than Geiger. Nocterra. I put Nocterra and Geiger in the same class because they came out at the same time by DC writers and DC artists, kind of thing. These aren't indie guys. Geiger was Gary Frank and Jeff Johns, and Nocterra is Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel. So these are, mainstream guys doing their own creator-owned stuff. And the beginning, I think I liked Geiger better, and I wasn't even going to pick up Nocterra. But I remember I picked up issue 2 on a slow week, then I picked up issue 3 on a slow week, and now I like Nocterra better than Geiger. I think it came together as a story better. I've known 3 days of sunshine my whole life. And it's about a world where the sunshine is gone. And if you stay in the shade too long, you turn into monsters. And all the animals on Earth turn into monsters in the dark, too. So there's monsters everywhere. Then there's Blacktop Bill, who was a monster before the monsters came.
Who knew vitamin D was that important?
But they're trying to figure out how to save the world. But it was a solid issue, Once again, another solid. This one, I didn't give this one a B+. This is a solid B+ comic. I enjoy it. Let's do another Reed Ripper slab. Let me see what I got here. Let's go to 1974 Mystery Comics.
Wow, that should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Share screen.
Sunny screen.
Come on, I hit the share button. What are you doing? Nothing. Ah, there we go. And I got 3 different companies for you. We got your Charlton, we got your DC, and we got your Marvel. Ghostly Haunts, Ghosts, and Where Monsters Dwell. Scott's deciding which one is the most yellow in it.
I don't have that much yellow. I'm going to read Ghosts, and I'd almost slab it because I like the cover the best on that one. But I'm going to read Ghosts. I'm going to slab Where Monsters Dwell, and I'm going to rip up Ghostly Haunts.
Poor Charlton.
No, I'm going
The
to.
print quality on that book is going to be terrible.
It's got a nice cover.
Nah,
Yeah, the cover's decent.
I want to try reading Ghostly Haunts. I think it'll be an interesting experience. I'm gonna slab Ghosts and I'm gonna rip Where Monsters Dwell.
Ah, he's ripping Where Monsters Dwell.
Because it's a reprint book.
Is that Plug on
man.
Where Monsters Dwell?
Is
that Mike Plug on the cover?
That one most likely might be, although John Romita
It's
probably.
hard to tell.
Mine, the comic is slaving ghosts, reads Ghostly, and ripping Where Monsters Dwell. He's on Paolo's side.
But Romita probably did the faces as he usually did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I'm slabbing Ghostly Haunts. It might be the only issue to be slabbed. We'll have to check the GPA analysis or whatever that is. Then, since I'm a Marvel guy, I'm going to read Where Monsters Dwell and rip up Ghosts. My childhood prejudices are making me rip up the DC book.
Cover by Larry Lieber. Can you believe it?
On Where Monsters Dwell?
Yeah.
I can believe it. He did a few covers.
Yeah.
I would never buy Where Monsters Dwell back in the spinner rack days. Too scary. Read Monsters. Rip Ghosts, slab Ghostly. Saul's on the same page as I am there. Slab Monsters because the cover is cool. Rip Ghostly, read Ghostly, rip. That was the other thing. I was trying to decide between Ghostly Haunts and Where Monsters Dwell to slab, and I think I like this. I like the really weird covers on Ghostly Haunts attracted me a little more. What beautiful Bronze Age book. Now, you can't take them all. You got to read one, rip one, and slab one. That's the game. Take them all isn't the game. Because in reality, of course, we'd all take them all. But that's not a game.
Yeah, back in that time frame, I'd be more willing to give DC the reasonable doubt of the quality of the writing.
Yeah. I'll take 3 comics isn't a game. Ghostly cover is real nice. Good coloring. Yeah, I like that Ghostly Haunts cover.
It's okay.
Too crappy. Oh, there's some crappiness to that cover, but a charming crappiness.
I don't think it's
The
crappy
colors on
either.
Ghostly look cool, and the art looks kind of underground. Yeah. I have no trouble calling any Charlton art crappy because odds are it is. But sometimes crappy is okay, you know? It just takes 50 years to be for crappy. 50 years from now, when they look back at crappy covers from 2022 that we're like, oh my God, why would you buy that cover? When they look back at Jupiter's Legacy #1 crappy cover and go, yeah, it's crappy, but I kind of like it. It says 2019. Because nobody who was looking at that Charlton cover in 1974 would think that we, all these decades later, would be going, yeah, that's kind of nice.
Right.
That Where Monsters Dwell had at Jack Kirby's first story at Marvel after they started buying new material after the Atlas implosion.
Okay. Who did the Ghostly Haunts cover?
I don't know. Let's see.
What number was that? That was Ghostly Haunts number 41. Oh, that it could be Tom Sutton.
He
I
did a
can't
lot of
see
work
it.
back then. Yeah.
What was that?
He did a lot of work back then.
Yeah, he did a lot of Charlton stuff.
It is Tom Sutton.
It is Tom Sutton. All right.
Yeah.
I remember first seeing Tom Sutton on, I think it was Star-Lord for Marvel.
I have
No.
no idea what my
What's
first-
that comic, Gun Honey? Yeah, I got, let's see. Where is it?
Gun honey just sounds like an oil that you would rub on the wood stock, the gun.
Okay.
It just sounds like a Japanese girl band.
I got my copy
Gun
of
honey 88s. Yeah.
whatever printing, the third printing, Adam Hughes, Gun Honey cover 1, and purely for the pretty woman on the cover. That's what it is. The pretty woman with no nipples. But I liked it. But yeah, cover porn. A sex appeal cover.
I'd actually like to see Adam Hughes do something different.
Oh, he does. Nobody cares about the dudes he draws on the covers, though.
No, I'm not talking about covers. I'm just like an actual ongoing. I know at one time he mentioned that he wanted to do a World War II book.
They don't have enough money for him.
I understand.
They'd have, yeah.
I'd like to see that. But
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very artistic. Right. Yeah. It's for the art. But yeah, see, I was never that big a fan of Adam Hughes. I like Adam Hughes's covers better than his interior work. Not that I think his interior work is bad or anything. I just never interested.
There's just some artists I would like to see them do something different. Like Alex Ross is a good example of that for me. Like he's good, but I'd like to see him do something different.
I think you're just tired of him, which I can understand. I'm tired of Alex Ross's covers too. They're not bad in any way, shape, or form.
It's like what's the word? It's like the Thomas Kincaid effect.
Yeah.
You see it over and over and over
Right.
and over and over, and it's like, okay,
And they're nice and they're skillfully done.
right.
So I think someone pointed, I think it was maybe a Sleepy Reader pointed, I can't remember. I went back and looked. His Immortal Hulk covers were really nice.
I haven't seen those.
The Alex Ross ones. Nicer than usual.
Maybe that's the different thing I want to see, and just
go and look, because I didn't even notice he was doing them. And I went and looked at a few of them and went, oh, he's right.
Right.
So go and look at some Immortal Hulk cover. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll put together a file of them and send you a link to it.
Okay.
Because I was going to do that. I like to do that sometimes. Put together like a CBR or CBZ file of just the covers of something so I can look at them.
I'd like to see Adam, even though he hasn't done anything in a while in that god awful Batman Odyssey. I'd like to see Neil Adams do something completely different.
I don't
Like
think
what?
Neil Adams can do anything different. I don't think Neil Adams has been able to do anything different since the 70s is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I admire Neil Adams' talent, he hasn't made a good comic since the 70s. And I think that has to do with him being an advertising guy. I mean, if comics had the money for Neil Adams, we'd have lots of great work by Neil Adams. But comics did not have the money for Neil Adams. Advertising did. He had to work in advertising to make his money and do his comics on the side. And he's been stuck in 1977 his whole comics career. But that's because he can't.
That's true. Yeah.
He hasn't been able to. His career would be completely different if he could have made the money in comics that he made in advertising.
Yeah. I'd just like to see him do something like different subject matter.
What was that?
I'd just like to see him do something with different subject matter than what he normally does.
Yeah. What Neil Adams was great, but I'm over it now. Exactly.
Mhm.
But like I said, I don't blame Neil. I don't think it has anything to do with Neil Adams. Neil Adams to me is as if in the 1970s George Lucas or Martin Scorsese quit making movies and made TV commercials the rest of their careers because there was no money in movies for them.
Right.
That's how big a waste I think that Neil Adams' career has been, in that comics couldn't pay him the money that he should have been paid.
Right.
So he went to advertising and got that money, which I don't blame him for. But
same thing that
comics
happened for
lost.
Zeta. Once he found out how much you get paid for doing book covers, like, the hell with
Yeah.
comics, you know?
Why is he going to spend his day drawing a comic for pennies when he can draw stuff in ad campaigns for thousands of dollars for
Right.
real money? Yeah. Best Neil Adams comic. Any of his Batman stuff.
Mhm.
Batman, Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
I'm still gonna say that his first X-Men comic had the best depiction of telepathic powers that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And nobody else has done anything like it since.
His X-Men may be my favorite Neil Adams because I'm a Marvel guy. Skate Man, all-time classic. Skate Man is the epitome of a bad Neil Adams comic, even though I don't think he drew the whole. I forget who drew it. One of his continuity guys actually drew most of it, though Neil Adams drew some of it. But my favorite comment, because I've been making fun of Skate Man since it first came out, because it's amazingly bad comic. It's like, holy cow, is that comic bad? But it took 20 years for, because it came out in the 80s. This is like in the early 2000s, Jacob Chabot, who I worked with in the bullpen, who does Mighty Skull Boy Army, had the best comment on Skate Man, where he had never read it before. So he read it in the early 2000s, whenever that was. I brought the copy in, of course, to show everyone, because you have to show everyone Skate Man every now and then. And twice during Skate Man is just a Vietnam vet who comes home from Vietnam and wants to clean up his neighborhood because drug dealers are in it. And he can roller skate really well. So he puts on a mask, puts on his skates, and becomes Skate Man to fight crime. And not once, but twice during the comic, somebody, the bad guys are chasing him, and he gets trapped in a dead-end alley. And I never really noticed that it happened twice before. And Jacob Chabot goes, Skate Man, his arch enemy is the dead-end alley. And I'm like, you know what? He's right. Because that was his arch enemy in that comic, the dead-end alley. That's what he feared most. But all, like, Mizmis, his big... I also always... kind of say, to me, Neil Adams was kind of like an absentee father. You have to show. You have to show everybody Skate Man every now and then. Yep. Condiments, man.
Skate Man and Rag Man.
Yeah, but Neil Adams had the perfect opportunity to create Kung Fury decades earlier. Because if he was stuck in a dead-end alley, what should he do? Suddenly, he was struck by lightning and bit by a cobra.
At the same time.
I was born. My prime comic book years as a kid, from 10 to 14 was 76 to 1980, and Neil Adams wasn't around anymore for the most part in those years. So to me, he was kind of a legend. He was like I said, I think of him as an absentee father because everyone talked about him. I could occasionally get a back issue of Neil Adams stuff and go, wow, this is amazing. but he wasn't really around and actively making comics. The first comic, Neil Adams comic I was around for was Ms. Mystic #1. And it was a big deal. It was direct. Oh, it was like 1981 or something. So I was 15, 16, was coming to comic shops only. Neil Adams back in comics, doing his own creator-owned comics. Ms. Mystic #1.
That was the continuity, right?
Continuity. It was awful. I remember getting it, and it just. Have you ever read Miss? It's not as bad as Skate Man by any stretch of the imagination, but it is not a good comic. And then issue 2 didn't come out for many months later. It was just a disaster. And then he also, around that same time, started getting some newsstand distribution for his continuity comics, like Armor, and I forget who else was in that first wave of continuity.
Twilight Zone?
What was that?
Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone? No, I don't think so. I don't think there was any licensed ones in there. It was Sam Marie, Armor.
Oh,
In
wow.
order for you to live, Armor must die. What was that? Toy
years.
Boy or something? Boy Toy?
I don't know about that one. But...
And they all had terrific artwork and were awfully written. I mean, they were just not good comics. So I remember that Neil Adams was a big disappointment to me in my childhood and teenhood because, like I said, he was this absentee father I heard a lot about. And when he finally came back to comics, he did not make good. The art was all nice, but he did not make good comics. Yes, Jared. Neil Adams was MIA in the 80s. We all wished he would come back to comics. John Bernfield, yeah. Even before that, yeah, he did come back in the 80s with continuity comics, and they weren't any good. That was the problem. We all wanted him to come back. You should do a video look at Skate Man. One of these, I'll have to. I think a lot of people have. It's a very famous band.
Get your copy of Skate Man slabbed.
Yeah, I've got 2 copies. There was a few years ago, the last time my comic shop, or one of the times my comic shop owner got a collection in. He had like a half a dozen copies of Skate Man. He's like, here, take a copy of Skate Man for free. It's yours. I was like, sure, I'll put a second copy on my shelf. Skate Man. One last comic I got for this week, which is getting so weird, is Crossover. Because now, this is the one where, in our world, superheroes have crossed over in Denver. And our world is trying to cope with these, Marvel, DC, Image superheroes who are in Denver. And then a dome went over the city, sealing them in. We have no idea what's going on. And then comic books kind of became, no one liked comic books anymore. They became underground because all these bad stuff was happening that was out of comic books. And then someone started killing comic book writers. And that mystery has been going on. Now we get, the writer of this is Donny Cates. And now we get Donny Cates in the comic.
Oh, boy.
And he's being interrogated by one of his Powers characters who have crossed over into this world, who's trying to figure out what's going on. And Donny Cates is like, I don't know what's going on. This was an unfinished story I came up with somebody. And it says Donny Cates first appeared out of the dome even. There's the dome. He walked out of the dome on like the first day and they arrested him, but he doesn't remember being in the dome. So it's like such a really weird story. And I'm not sure who this guy is, who this John Goodman looking guy is. But he's become a villain in the piece. But I'm going to give you a spoiler at the end, just for the heck of it. So if you don't want crossover number 11 spoiled, which I'm probably the only one here reading it, here are the 2. And the comic book world characters have the moire dots, the printing dots all over them. So that's how you can tell they come from the comic book world. So they're meeting somebody who is snuck out of the dome, who's supposed to be able to help them. And he's not. Oh, he's in black and white. It turns out to be Negan from The Walking Dead shows up on the last panel. So now we've got Walking Dead crossing over into this world with Powers and Madman and everybody else who's shown up. So this book has just gone bonkers.
Are they all going to meet up in Munden's bar?
Yeah. Good idea. But it started out fairly straightforward as sort of this adventure story. The first story arc was this sort of adventure story about, superheroes coming over, this one girl and this guy who worked in the comic book shop trying to figure out what's going on this little quest. And this second one is it is a mess. It reads like an okay mess. Don't expect it not to be a mess. It's a mess. But there's no way for it not to be a mess. I'm enjoying the messiness of it because it's nuts.
Does it seem to you like it's a story he didn't know where to end and just kind of veered off on a tangent?
It could be that. I don't know.
I just wondered.
The first story arc is very different than this one. And this one, the first story arc was fairly straightforward. They were on a quest. They did their quest. It didn't solve the problem. And then this second story arc is them trying to solve the problem, but they don't know it's just so much more. Listen, I'm enjoying it, but I'm enjoying the messiness of it.
Okay.
Because it doesn't. The first story arc was like a structured story arc. It's like every other story.
Right.
And that I actually liked that one less than I liked this second story arc, which is just a mess. I mean, Donny Cates shows up in it. Why? How's it not going to be a mess? And Donny Cates is trying to explain to the Powers guy, that he's the writer, but the artist writes a lot of the story too.
Right.
He said something like, "Well, if I were your creator, you wouldn't have that stupid mustache."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like Brian Michael Bendis was in last issue, I think, trying to explain to the Powers guys that I'm the writer, but I didn't come up with everything.
Yeah.
Me and who drew Powers? Oming.
Yep.
It's like Oming came up with a lot of stuff too. It's not just me. I'm not responsible.
Oh my God, I'm gonna be snarky, but wouldn't it be fun to put Stanley in there and see what he?
I didn't come up with anything. But I look forward to listening to more of that Stan Lee Under Oath on Kayfabe.
Yeah.
Stanley lying under oath.
This has nothing to do with comics, but it sort of does. Talking about Stanley, I just read a book called Game Wizards. It's about
what?
Called Game Wizards.
Game Wizards. Okay.
Yeah, and it's about the rise of Dungeons and Dragons and how the two co-creators, who are Gary Gygax, and who is the well-known one, and Dave Arneson, who is not very well-known.
Right.
The parallels between that dynamic and the Kirby Lee dynamic are almost exactly the same.
Wow.
It's like watching the same story over, and it just strikes you as like, oh my God, it's just beat for beat the same thing happening again.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Lee Kirby, everybody says, talks about Lee Kirby, but Lee was the boss. That's, that's the. Sure, the people always talk about them and their partnership, but there was no partnership. Lee was the boss. He had final say on everything.
Yeah. But so it was very much like that.
It's an unequal power dynamic.
Yeah.
Unlike, let's say, in music, the Beatles, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, they had an equal power dynamic. One was not the boss in their creative, work. But with Lee and Kirby, that can't be overlooked. Is that Lee was the boss? He had the final word.
Yeah.
Unlike even, let's say, Simon and Kirby. They were both, they were partners.
more
Lee and Kirby were not partners by any stretch of the imagination. So Lee always had the upper hand. And and when you've got the upper hand, you're not allowed to sexually abuse someone, but you can financially abuse them all you want, and that's considered moral. So
you use the same term.
yeah. You can rip off whoever you want if you've got the financial upper hand and you're the boss. You can't, there's things you can't do, but you can take all the money you can out of them.
That's
just amazing to me.
We call capitalism. Right.
Yeah, it's amazing to me our morals when it comes to certain things. It's like, we understand now. You used to be able to abuse your employees sexually, but we don't stand for that anymore. That's not part of the job. Being ripped off financially, now that's part of the job. Still.
Yeah.
That thieving is okay. It's like, what? Can't both be wrong? Not yet. We got partway there.
I saw a couple people, I think Tim and maybe it's Charlton 66 were talking about the strange death of Alex Raymond not being what they expected.
I read it as it was coming out. I can't say that, but yeah, it's
right. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's Dave Sim obsessing over the death of Alex Raymond and what exactly happened, and going over Alex Raymond's work. And so, yeah, that's one that's. I want to read the end of it, so it's on my wish list on Amazon. But most creators are not paid well. Oh yeah, that's why when I hear like when that first issue of Saga came out, that they're like, Saga has they've sold over 7 million trade paperbacks worldwide. I was like, I'm glad he has it with Image and owns it, because I'm sure he and Fiona Staples get a good chunk of that 7 million copies.
It would be interesting to see how much royalties they get off of that.
Chris Geruso said that Image is the best with that because they don't own any property.
Right.
Image owns no IP.
Yeah, I just wonder what a percentage would be on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that would
be interesting to see it. Yeah.
Right.
Like, you mean how much money? Wow.
As far as I know, after all the costs are paid for, it's like a 50-50 split. But I don't even know I think Image may even get less than that after the certain amount of time.
Okay.
Brian K. Vaughan, Brian K. Vaughan, he writes Saga, right?
Yeah.
He was saying, we took our 3 years off, and I'm glad Image kept selling the hell out of that book.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the most interesting takes I heard on the Lee Kirby dynamic. Summoning Gore Vidal. One of the most interesting takes on the Lee Kirby dynamic I heard. I can't remember where I read this, but somebody was saying that Kirby and Joe Simon and Jack Kirby had an actual partnership, legal partnership, and often. Mm-hmm. Joe Simon would take care of a lot of the business stuff, freeing up Jack Kirby to do the creative stuff. So, when Simon and Kirby broke up, Jack Kirby may have seen Stan Lee in sort of that Joe Simon role for him.
Yeah, I could see that.
But Stan Lee was under no obligation. He was not Jack Kirby's partner. And
right.
And even though he was Jack Kirby was promised more money by Martin Goodman, he never came through with it. And Stan Lee was under no obligation to try and get him that money. Even though Stan may have said, hey, you're going to pay him more money. But in that, right. Martin Goodman probably gave him that I take all the risks speech. That's all BS.
Of course, you should have been on the. You should have been wary of that after what had happened at DC.
Oh, I'm sure he was. But still, what do? Well, when you're a freelancer, the only power you have is to walk away.
Mm.
And if you got to feed your family, it's tough to walk away. But that's the only power you have. And you know what happens when you walk away? They don't care. I've walked away many times. They don't care. They'll find someone to do the job at their cheap price.
They've probably got a typed up job offering just waiting to upload to Monster and LinkedIn the second you go away. Boop, there it goes.
Stan Lee had no control over the money. That was all Martin Goodman. So Stan Lee was not stingy with the money because he had no control over it. He made sure Jack Kirby got paid the top rate. And Jack Kirby was making good money, but not as much as he deserved. He wanted a piece of the action because imagine if you're Jack Kirby and everything you create makes the company more money than somebody else creates. And every book you come on makes the company more money than the last guy who they had on it. Except you get no more money than the last guy. So you're getting hired on, you're all of a sudden, let's say artist and writer X are on the comic and they're making the company $100. Jack Kirby gets on and all of a sudden they're making the company $150. But Jack Kirby and the last guy get paid the same amount. You can see why Jack Kirby would say, hey,
yeah, I mean, perfectly.
Give me some royalties. Give me extra. I'm selling more copies than the last guy. But the owners just don't care. They see you as interchangeable. They don't even. It doesn't even make a blip in their radar that you were the one who made the. Because they're just seeing sales go up and down over the years, and to them, sales go up and down. You have nothing to do with it. Sales are going to go up and down no matter who they have on that book. So they may as well pay the least amount of money possible. There's always another sucker. There is. Thank God there are a lot more options out there these days for them. Yeah. Guess Kirby fell out of favor pay-wise in the 80s and the 70s even. He was in the 70s. A lot of the younger editors and whatever called him Jack the Hack. Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine having a time machine, going back in time, and having a conversation with one of those guys calling Jack Kirby a hack? What the hell are you
amazing? Yeah. Well, I guess we should wrap up and let Paolo get to bed. It's that time of night. So you guys all have a good night out there. We'll see you next week and talk some more comics.
We'll talk about Skate Man.
We'll talk about Skate Man. I've got a Craig Russell artist edition to do a video about. Maybe I'll do that this weekend.
Nice.
Later, fellas.
Bye.
Terrible thing to say. Bye.
And that is a terrible thing to say about Jack. It is.
Oh, I thought he was talking about Skate Man.
No, I think he's talking about Jack the Hack.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Everybody have a good night, and we will catch you later.
Bye.